What's up guys, I'm going to teach you how to replace a clutch on this 03 through 05 Honda Civic Hybrid. The things you have to remove on top, it's really easy. It's just this air box and there's a bolt here and a bolt here. Once you do that, you remove the battery as well and the battery pan in order to get better clearance, and that's, I believe, 3 bolts right there. We're going to start off by removing the axle nut. I use the Harbor Freight air impact for that. And now that that's taken off, we can remove the brake caliper and loosen the bolts holding the strut together. Here's me removing the brake caliper. I'm just going to set it up top so it doesn't get in the way. And now I'm pulling out the bolts for the strut. This should give you plenty of play to remove the CV shaft. Now it's a little tight, so you have to finesse the CV shaft out of this. I disconnected this wire from right here because I tried to remove it from here and it started breaking away the ABS sensor, and it's basically rusted on, and I don't want to buy a new one, so I just took it away from there, and that's what I'm gonna do before I drop the whole frame. Now this is me underneath the transmission, and I'm taking out the CV shaft. It's really easy. All you do is get a pry bar and basically you pry it out. Now you can simply just pull it out. Now to remove the one on the passenger side, it's basically the exact same way, except that there's a mount in the middle of it. So this is for the bearing, and it just has a few extra bolts. I think it's 5 total. You just gotta loosen them and it'll be easy to pop out. So here's a time lapse of me removing it. We're gonna remove this little dust cover first, and then there's 3 bolts holding this bearing. I'm underneath the car. So we have this one, driver's side. There is a mount right here. Right here holds the transmission. We're gonna take out that bolt. We have another one right there. Same on those corners. We have one right there. Same on that side. And then we're gonna take off this motor mount with these 3 bottom bolts right here. You're gonna wanna put a jack underneath the engine. Another thing I should have done, but I didn't in this video, is remove the sway bar. I did it later, but it gets in the way a lot. After that's removed, I'm gonna start to remove the bolts from the transmission. There's one that's pretty hard to get to, and I think it's the hardest one, but it's not too bad. It's right here. You can't really see it, but it's underneath the exhaust manifold. The best way to get to it is underneath the car, and I'm going to remove this heat shield, but it was totally not necessary. But you can get a better idea of where the bolt is. It's right there. Now that I got all the bolts off, I'm going to remove this transmission mount. Able to put this where the starter is and start separating it like that. And I think there's just one spot left. Once you pry it enough, it will be able to come out. I have a jack underneath to help catch it. Now the pressure plate is exposed. You're going to remove that with a 10mm. I used my impact gun. Same with the flywheel, just impact those bolts out. And then pry off the flywheel. I took the flywheel off and sent it to get resurfaced. Then pressed in the new pilot bearing. I just leave the breaker bar here. I'm laying it on the subframe. If it moves from here, then I'll put a breaker bar against the concrete. But yeah, we're just gonna keep the flywheel from moving, and then we're gonna torque it according to spec, and I'll figure that out right now. I had to look in a lot of different places, but it said 33 foot-pounds. I found that on a forum. That seems kind of accurate because these are small bolts. They're not the bigger ones, and it does bolt onto this electric motor. It doesn't bolt onto the crankshaft, so I don't want to break that. So that's what I'm gonna attempt, and we'll see how it goes. The bolts have not fallen out, and it's been over a month, so that's good. Now it's a clutch, and we just use the alignment tool. Get out of the way. Stick it all the way in there, and then we're gonna stick the clutch actually on. Now it's time to put the pressure plate on, and that one uses these 10 millimeters. And those were torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. You're going to want to grease anything that moves. For example, this ball and the shaft where the throwout bearing is going to go on. Now you can put the fork back in and the throwout bearing and make sure it moves back and forth smoothly. It moves pretty nicely to me. Now to put the transmission back in, I just picked it up and put it in. It's not that heavy, and using the jack was kind of hard. So I'm using a jack to lift it up. Once I finger tighten a few of these, and then I just use the electric impact 'cause it's not too hard. Then I raise it all the way up to this motor mount and tighten it up. So a good way to get this mount in is loosen these two bolts and that one. Loosen them until it's wiggles enough, it's jacked up high enough, and then slide this bolt in and maneuver this back and forth until it's tight, and then tighten these down. That's the way I found that was the easiest. And now just put everything back in reverse order of how you put it in. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe.